The Forgotten Children, the last council meeting. The emergency session of the Stellar Federation Council convened in the dying light of Altair Prime's triple suns. Ambassador Kira Thorne of the Altarian Republic watched as representatives from 12 remaining species filed into the Great Chamber. Once this hall had housed delegates from over 40 civilizations. Now empty seats outnumbered occupied ones by 3 to 1. High Marshal Vextar materialized his crystalline form at the military briefing station. The tall, translucent being's internal light pulsed with barely controlled anxiety. His people, the crystallines, had survived for millions of years by avoiding conflict through superior technology. That technology meant nothing against their current enemy. The situation deteriorates faster than our worst projections, Vextar announced, his voice creating harmonics that resonated through the chamber's acoustic systems. The Void Collective consumed the Helix Nebula colonies yesterday. 14 billion consciousness signatures simply vanished. Dr. Zen Axios, the chief scientist from the Ethereal Coalition, floated near the chamber's center, her gaseous form shifting between blue and purple with distress. "They're not just killing our people," she whispered, her voice carrying on carefully modulated air currents. "They're consuming their very essence. Every mind they absorb makes them stronger, smarter, more coordinated." Ambassador Thorne studied the tactical displays with growing dread. Red zones marked areas under Void Collective control. 5 years ago, those zones had been tiny spots on the Galactic map. Now they covered nearly 80% of former Federation space. The advance seemed unstoppable. The discovery in ancient files. "We need allies," Thorne said quietly. "Species with military experience we haven't contacted. Someone who understands warfare better than we do." High Marshal Vextar's crystalline structure flickered with skepticism. "We have contacted every known spacefaring civilization. Those who could help us are already here. Those who couldn't were consumed months ago." "Not everyone," Thorne replied, pulling up her personal data tablet. For weeks she had been reviewing old Federation archives, searching for any overlooked possibility. "I found something in the deep historical files, a species that applied for Federation membership 3 centuries ago." The holographic display shifted to show an ancient contact report. The assembled delegates leaned forward to examine the primitive data format. Species designation had read simply as humans from a world called Earth. "I remember this," said Dr. Axios, her form brightening with recollection. "They were placed on the waiting list for membership evaluation. Promising but technologically primitive, single-planet civilization with limited space capabilities." Marshal Vextar accessed his own historical databases. Initial contact established in year 2387 of the old calendar. They showed interest in Federation membership but lacked the technological prerequisites. "We scheduled follow-up contact for 50 years later to allow for development." "And?" prompted Thorne. No response. "Their communication systems went silent. We assumed they had destroyed themselves in warfare or natural disaster. Primitive species often do before achieving spaceflight stability." Thorne highlighted specific data from the ancient files. "Look at their psychological profiles from first contact." The Federation assessors noted several unusual characteristics: high adaptability, pack loyalty, and something they called stubborn determination. The assessment that changed everything. The old report painted a picture of a species unlike any the Federation had encountered. Where most civilizations developed space travel after achieving planetary peace, humans had reached the stars while still divided into competing nations. Where most species shared resources efficiently through advanced planning, humans seemed to thrive on competition and scarcity. "Listen to this assessment," Thorne read from the file. Quote, "Humans display an unusual psychological trait. When faced with impossible odds, instead of seeking compromise or retreat, they become more determined. They appear to draw strength from adversity rather than being weakened by it." End quote. Dr. Axios's gaseous form swirled with interest. "Fascinating but hardly unique. Many species show courage in crisis." "There's more," Thorne continued. Quote, "Human pack behavior extends beyond biological family groups. They form intense loyalty bonds with non-related individuals, and will sacrifice personal safety for group survival. Most remarkably, they extend this protection instinct to complete strangers who share their values or whom they perceive as defenseless." End quote. The chamber fell silent as the implications became clear. Every Federation species protected their own kind, but few extended such protection to others without careful calculation of mutual benefit. Marshal Vex. Tar processed this information through his crystalline matrix. Even if they survived the centuries, their technology would still be primitive. What could they contribute to our fight against the Void Collective? "Maybe primitive is what we need," Thorne replied. "Every Federation species fights using similar principles: advanced technology, coordinated strategies, minimal casualties. The Void Collective has learned to counter all of it." The search begins. High Marshal Vextar authorized a deep space reconnaissance mission to the human home system. The expedition consisted of 3 scout ships equipped with the Federation's most advanced sensors. If humans had survived, they would find them. Commander Kale Soren of the Altarian Scout Service led the mission. His orders were specific: locate any human settlements, assess their technological level, and determine if they could contribute to the war effort. No one expected to find much more than archaeological remains. The journey to the human home system took 6 days through hyperspace. When the scout ships emerged near the star humans called Sol, Commander Soren immediately knew the assessment of human extinction had been wrong. The system buzzed with activity. Space stations orbited every major planet. Asteroid mining operations dotted the belt between the 4th and 5th worlds. Ships moved in complex patterns between installations, their designs unlike anything in Federation databases. "Commander," reported his sensor officer, "I'm reading massive industrial complexes throughout the system. Production levels suggest a population in the billions, possibly tens of billions." Soren studied the tactical displays with growing amazement. The humans hadn't just survived, they had thrived. Their technology had advanced far beyond the primitive level recorded in the old files. Ships that had once been limited to chemical rockets now moved using advanced fusion drives. Space habitats that could house millions of inhabitants floated in perfect orbital mechanics. First contact renewed. "Unknown vessels, this is Captain Marcus Rodriguez of the Sol Defense Force. You are entering restricted space. State your purpose and origin." The voice came through clearly on standard Federation communication frequencies. Humans had developed their own translation protocols and were using proper diplomatic channels. Commander Soren activated his ship's communication array. "Captain Rodriguez, this is Commander Soren of the Stellar Federation Scout Service. We are peaceful explorers seeking to renew contact with the human species. Our records indicate previous diplomatic relations approximately 300 years ago." A long pause followed. When Captain Rodriguez responded, his tone had shifted to one of cautious interest. "Commander Soren, please maintain your current position. We are dispatching diplomatic escort vessels. Be advised that Sol system defenses are automated and will respond to any aggressive actions." As they waited, Soren's sensors detected the approaching escort fleet. 12 human ships moved toward them in a formation that spoke of military precision. The vessels themselves were fascinating studies in design philosophy. Heavy armor plating covered every surface. Weapon ports bristled along their hulls. These ships were built for war, not exploration. The shocking revelation: Captain Rodriguez's ship, the UES Determination, docked with the Federation scout vessel 3 hours later. The human officer who came aboard looked exactly as the old files had described his species: bipedal, averaging 6 feet in height, with skin tones ranging from light brown to dark. What the files hadn't captured was the intensity in their eyes. "Commander Soren," Rodriguez said, extending his hand in the human greeting gesture. "Welcome back to Sol. We've been wondering when you'd return." "Captain, we believed your species had gone extinct. When your communications ceased 3 centuries ago, we assumed natural disaster or warfare had claimed your civilization." Rodriguez's expression grew grim. "We went silent for good reason. The Void Collective found us 50 years after you left." Soren felt his heart stop beating. "The Void Collective was here? In your system?" 3 assault waves over the past 270 years, Rodriguez confirmed. "We've been fighting them ever since. That's why we stopped answering your calls. We were too busy learning how to kill things that eat minds." The revelation sent shockwaves through Commander Soren's understanding of the galaxy. While the Federation had enjoyed centuries of peace, humans had been locked in a desperate war for survival against the same enemy now threatening everyone else. "How did you survive?" Soren asked. "The Void Collective has consumed civilizations far more advanced than your original technological level." Rodriguez smiled, but it wasn't a pleasant expression. "We learned their weaknesses the hard way, lost billions of people in the process, but humans don't give up, Commander. We adapt, we learn, and we never stop fighting." The Hidden War. Captain Rodriguez led Commander Soren to the observation deck of the Determination. Through the reinforced viewports, the Sol system's defensive installations became visible. Massive weapon platforms hung in space like metal planets. Automated defense grids created geometric patterns of overlapping fire zones. Everything was built for war on a scale that dwarfed anything in Federation records. "After the first Void attack, we realized our old way of life was over," Rodriguez explained. "No more separate nations competing with each other. No more waste of resources on non-essential luxuries. Everything focused on one goal, making sure humanity survives the next attack." The human captain activated a holographic display showing the system's defensive layout. "We call it the ring defense. Multiple layers of automated weapons, manned stations, and mobile fleets. When the Void Collective comes, we make them pay for every meter of space." Commander Soren studied the display with growing awe. The humans had essentially turned their entire star system into a fortress. Every asteroid had been converted into a weapons platform. Every moon hosted manufacturing facilities for ships and ammunition. Even the space between planets was filled with sensor networks and automated defense drones. "But defense alone doesn't win wars," Rodriguez continued. "We learned that in the second attack, so we went on the offensive." The display changed to show human fleet positions throughout local space. Soren's sensors had detected perhaps a dozen ships near Sol. The reality was that human forces numbered in the thousands, scattered across nearby star systems in hidden bases and mobile fleets. The pack mentality revealed. "Your tactical doctrine appears highly unconventional," Soren observed. "Federation military theory emphasizes large fleet concentrations for maximum firepower." "Federation military theory got 12 of your fleets destroyed," Rodriguez replied bluntly. "We tried fighting the Void the proper way during our second war, lost half our remaining population in 6 months." The human captain pulled up combat footage from human battles with the Void Collective. The Federation scout watched in fascination as human fleets operated in ways that violated every principle of civilized warfare. Ships broke formation constantly. Individual captains made tactical decisions without waiting for orders. Units would abandon optimal positions to support distant allies under attack. "It looks chaotic," Soren admitted. "It is chaotic. That's the point. The Void Collective thinks like a single organism. They predict behavior based on optimal decision-making. Humans don't always make optimal decisions. We make human decisions." Rodriguez highlighted a specific battle sequence. "Watch this engagement. The Void had our third fleet surrounded. Standard tactics called for an organized retreat to minimize losses. Instead, Captain Lisa Chen of the Defiant charged directly into the Void formation. The footage showed a single human ship diving into the center of enemy forces. Instead of being destroyed immediately, the unexpected action caused confusion in Void ranks. Other human ships used the distraction to break the encirclement and counterattack. Chen died in that charge, Rodriguez said quietly. But her sacrifice saved 8,000 lives and turned a defeat into victory. That's human nature, Commander. We don't abandon our own, and we don't calculate acceptable losses when people we care about are dying." The proposal, Dr. Axios had joined them through quantum communication, her ethereal form projected into the observation deck. "Captain Rodriguez, the Federation faces extinction within months. Our combined fleets cannot match Void Collective expand. Cyan, would humanity consider joining our war effort?" Rodriguez exchanged glances with his bridge crew. They seemed to communicate through subtle expressions and gestures. a form of nonverbal coordination the Federation had never observed in humans. "Doctor, with respect, we're not interested in joining your war effort," Rodriguez said finally. The silence that followed was deafening. Commander Soren felt hope draining from his spirit like air from a breached hull. "We're interested in ending it," Rodriguez continued. "The Void Collective is a threat to every thinking being in the galaxy. This isn't the Federation's war anymore. It's everyone's war." Admiral Sarah Blake's image appeared on the communication screen. The older human woman wore a uniform marked with symbols of rank and service medals. Her presence commanded immediate respect. "Commander Soren, Dr. Axios," Admiral Blake said formally. "I am Admiral Sarah Blake, Supreme Commander of the United Human Defense Fleet. Captain Rodriguez has briefed me on your situation. Humanity offers the Federation a military alliance with one condition." "Name it," said Dr. Axios immediately. "No species gets left behind. When we fight the Void Collective, we fight for everyone. Human colonies, Federation worlds, uncontacted civilizations, everyone. We don't retreat and abandon populations to save strategic resources. We don't calculate acceptable losses based on species value. Everyone gets defended or no one does." The Federation's choice, the terms Admiral Blake offered, were unlike anything in Federation diplomatic history. Humans weren't asking for territory, technology, or resources. They were demanding that the Federation abandon its careful, calculated approach to warfare and commit to total protection of all allied populations. "Admiral," Commander Soren said carefully, "Federation military doctrine has always emphasized preservation of strategic assets. Sometimes tactics, CAL withdrawals are necessary to maintain overall defensive capability." "Commander, Federation military doctrine has lost 80% of your territory," Blake replied sharply. "Maybe it's time to try something different." High Marshal Vextar's crystalline form materialized next to Dr. Axios through quantum projection. "Admiral Blake, what you propose violates every principle of efficient resource allocation. Protecting every population center would stretch our forces beyond effective deployment density." "Marshal, let me explain something about human military philosophy," Blake said, her tone becoming steely. "We'd rather lose a war trying to save everyone than win a war by abandoning anyone. If that's not acceptable to the Federation, then we'll fight the Void Collective alone." The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Humans were offering their military expertise and battle-tested experience, but only on their own terms. The Federation could accept human methods or face extinction without human help. The decision that changed everything. Ambassador Thorne felt the weight of her species' survival resting on the next few words she spoke. Everything the Federation represented, careful diplomacy, technological advancement, civilized behavior, had failed against the Void Collective. Perhaps it was time to embrace something they had never tried: absolute determination. "Admiral Blake," Thorne said formally, "the Stellar Federation accepts your alliance proposal. Our combined forces will operate under unified command with the protection mandate you described." Blake's expression softened slightly. "Ambassador, I want to be clear about what you're agreeing to. Human military operations can be intense. We don't follow traditional rules of engagement. We don't limit ourselves to acceptable weapons or tactics. When we fight to win completely." "Doctor," Axios pulsed with nervous energy. "What do you mean by completely?" "I mean we don't stop until the enemy is no longer capable of threatening anyone ever again," Blake replied. "The Void Collective wants to consume consciousness throughout the galaxy. Our goal is to make sure they never consume another thinking being." High Marshal Vextar's form flickered as he processed the human approach to warfare. "You speak of total victory rather than strategic stalemate or negotiated settlement." "Marshal, you can't negotiate with something that wants to eat your mind," Blake said bluntly. "The Void Collective doesn't want territory or resources. They want consciousness itself. The only way to stop them is to destroy their ability to continue their expansion." Preparing for war, within hours of the Alliance Agreement, human ships began arriving in Federation space. Commander Soren watched in amazement as the human fleet composition became clear. Where Federation vessels were specialized for specific roles, human ships seemed designed for adaptability. Each vessel carried multiple weapon systems, redundant life support, and modular construction that allowed rapid field modifications. Captain Rodriguez explained human ship design philosophy during a joint planning session. Federation ships are optimized for their intended missions. Human ships are optimized to survive missions going wrong. The difference was evident in every aspect of human military technology. Their ships had heavier armor than necessary, more weapons than standard doctrine recommended, and backup systems for their backup systems. Everything was built on the assumption that battle plans would fail and equipment would break at the worst possible moment. "Your vessels appear to sacrifice efficiency for redundancy," observed Marshal Vextar. "Efficient ships are useless when they're destroyed," Rodriguez replied. "Redundant ships keep fighting when everything goes wrong, and in war, everything always goes wrong." Admiral Blake had arrived with the main human fleet, and her presence changed the entire dynamic of military planning. Where Federation commanders carefully calculated optimal force deployment, Blake focused on what she called maintaining pressure. "The Void Collective adapts to whatever tactics we use against them," Blake explained to the assembled military leaders. "So we're not going to give them time to adapt. Constant attacks, multiple fronts, no predictable patterns." Dr. Axios struggled to understand the human approach. "But without coordinated planning, how do you ensure your forces aren't working against each other?" "Trust," Blake answered simply. "Every human commander understands our overall objective: protect thinking beings and destroy the Void Collective. How they accomplish that objective is up to them." The human fleet reveals its true nature. The first joint operation began 72 hours after the alliance was signed. The target was a Void Collective harvesting operation in the Proxima sector, where enemy forces were consuming the population of 3 Federation colonies. Federation commanders expected a careful approach: reconnaissance, detailed planning, coordinated assault with predetermined withdrawal conditions. Admiral Blake had different ideas. "All human units, this is Admiral Blake. Mission parameters are simple: get our people out and make the Void pay for being there. Execute immediately." Commander Soren watched in shock as human ships accelerated directly toward the Void positions without waiting for detailed tactical coordination. The human fleet moved like a pack of predators, each ship supporting the others through instinct rather than complicated communication protocols. "Admiral," protested Marshal Vextar, "your forces are advancing without proper reconnaissance or fire support coordination." "Marshal, every minute we spend planning is another minute those colonies die," Blake replied. "My captains know what they're doing." The battle that followed redefined everything Federation military observers thought they knew about space combat. Human ships fought with reckless aggression that should have been suicidal. They broke every rule of proper fleet engagement, ignored optimal firing positions, and seemed to prioritize protecting each other over tactical advantage. And it worked. Victory through chaos. The Void Collective forces, accustomed to fighting predictable Federation tactics, found themselves unable to counter human unpredictability. When human ships took damage, instead of withdrawing to safe positions, they pressed attacks even harder. When faced with overwhelming odds, human commanders coordinated spontaneous mutual support that confused Void tactical algorithms. Captain Elena Vasquez of the UES Relentless demonstrated human tactical thinking when her ship was surrounded by Void fighters. Instead of trying to fight her way to safety, she deliberately allowed her vessel to be boarded by Void entities. "Vasquez, what are you doing?" demanded her wing commander over communication channels. "Giving them a surprise," she replied calmly. Moments later, the Relentless detonated its entire ammunition magazine while the Void creatures were inside the hull. The explosion destroyed her ship, but eliminated an entire Void assault squadron. Vasquez's crew survived in escape pods, Captain Rodriguez explained to the stunned Federation observers. "The ship's expendable, the crew isn't. That's human logic." By the battle's end, human forces had rescued all 3 colony populations and eliminated the Void harvesting operation. Federation forces had provided supporting fire and evacuation assistance, but the aggressive assault tactics were entirely human. Dr. Axios reviewed the battle data with growing excitement. The Void Collective lost coherence in their formation multiple times. Their adaptate ion protocols couldn't keep up with the rate of tactical changes. Because we weren't using tactics, Admiral Blake explained. We were just fighting. Each captain responded to immediate threats and opportunities without waiting for permission or coordination. The Void couldn't predict our responses because we weren't following predictable patterns. The new alliance, High Marshal Vextar's crystalline structure, pulsed with new understanding. You fight as individuals who happen to be cooperating rather than as a coordinated unit following a single plan. We fight as a pack, Blake corrected. Everyone protects everyone else, but each member can act independently when necessary. It's chaotic, but it's effective chaos. Ambassador Thorne realized they were witnessing something unprecedented in galactic history. Humans had developed a form of warfare that was simultaneously primitive and advanced, chaotic and effective, individual and collective. Admiral Blake, Thorne said formally, the Federation places our remaining military forces under Joint Human Federation Command. We need to learn your methods if we're going to survive. Blake nodded grimly. Ambassador, before we continue, I need you to understand something about human warfare. We don't fight to achieve acceptable outcomes. We fight to win completely. When we're done with the Void Collective, they won't be a threat to anyone, anywhere, ever again. The first part of the war was ending, but the real battle was just beginning. Humanity had returned to galactic civilization, bringing with them 3 centuries of hard-learned lessons about survival against impossible odds. The Void Collective was about to discover what happened when pack hunters decided their prey had become too dangerous to ignore. The Pack Unleashed, Integration Day. The massive conference room aboard the Federation flagship Harmony had been hastily modified to accommodate both human and alien physiology. Admiral Sarah Blake stood before the largest gathering of military commanders in Federation history. 57 species were represented, from the crystalline Vextar to the gaseous Dr. Axios. All of them watched the small human woman who had promised to teach them how to fight an unbeatable enemy. Ladies, gentlemen, and various non-binary consciousness configurations, Blake began, using the formal Federation greeting protocols. Today we're going to discuss why everything you think you know about warfare is wrong. Captain Lisa Chen, Blake's chief tactical officer, activated the holographic battle display. The 3-dimensional map showed current Void Collective positions throughout the galaxy. Red zones marked areas under complete enemy control. Orange zones indicated active invasion zones. The few remaining blue zones representing Free Federation space looked pitifully small. Standard Federation doctrine calls for defensive positioning to protect remaining strongholds, Blake continued. This approach has failed completely because you're thinking like prey instead of predators. High Marshal Vextar's crystalline structure pulsed with confusion. Admiral, Federation forces have always fought defensively to minimize casualties and preserve civilian populations. And how has that worked out? Blake asked pointedly. You've lost 80% of your territory by prioritizing defense over offense. The Void Collective doesn't respect your defensive positions. They simply flow around them and consume everything else. Commander Irel of the Aquatic Confederation raised a tentacled appendage. Admiral Blake, human military history suggests your species has extensive experience with aggressive warfare. However, our analyses indicate such tactics result in massive casualties on both sides. Blake's expression hardened. Commander, massive casualties are what you get when you lose. Acceptable casualties are what you get when you win. There's a difference. The human method. Dr. Axios floated closer to the tactical display, her gaseous form shifting to deeper blue with interest. Admiral, could you explain the fundamental difference between human and Federation tactical doctrine? Captain Chen stepped forward, her own battle-scarred appearance testament to human military experience. Doctor, Federation tactics are based on preservation and efficiency. You calculate optimal outcomes and deploy forces to achieve those outcomes with minimal risk. The holographic display shifted to show recorded footage from human battles with the Void Collective. Ships fought in loose formations that constantly shifted and adapted. Individual vessels broke off to support allies under attack. Commanders made split-second decisions without consultation. Human tactics are based on adaptation and determination, Chen continued. We assume our plans will fail, our equipment will break, and our enemies will do unexpected things, so we prepare our people to think independently and react instantly. Ambassador Thorne studied the human battle footage with growing understanding. Your individual ship commanders have authority to modify mission parameters in real time. Every human officer from squad leader to fleet admiral has the authority and responsibility to achieve mission objectives using whatever methods work, Blake confirmed. We don't ask permission to save lives or destroy enemies. The first joint operation, the test of human Federation integration, came sooner than expected. Void Collective forces launched a surprise assault on the Centauri Research Station, home to 40 million Federation civilians and the Galaxy's most advanced xenobiology laboratories. Traditional Federation response would have required 18 hours of planning and coordination. Admiral Blake launched the counterattack in 30 minutes. All human and Federation units in sectors 7 through 12. This is Admiral Blake. Centauri Station is under attack. Mission objective: save everyone and destroy all Void forces. Execute immediately. Commander Soren, now serving as Federation liaison aboard the human flagship, watched in amazement as the combined fleet moved into action. Human ships accelerated at dangerous speeds toward the battle zone. Federation vessels, following their new human advisors, matched the aggressive pace despite their crew's discomfort with the rapid deployment. Admiral, reported Captain Chen from the tactical station, Void forces have established a consumption perimeter around Centauri Station. Standard approach vectors are heavily defended. Then we don't use standard approach vectors, Blake replied. Chen, take Strike Group Alpha through the asteroid field. Rodriguez, bring Beta Group up from below the orbital plane. I want the Void forces so confused they don't know which way to defend. Federation officers watched in fascination as human commanders coordinated attacks without detailed planning. Each strike group leader understood their objective and found their own way to achieve it. The flexibility allowed them to exploit opportunities that rigid tactical doctrines would have missed. The Battle of Centauri Station. The engagement that followed became known as the Battle of Centauri Station, the first major victory against the Void Collective in 5 years. Human and Federation forces worked together in ways that should have been impossible. Captain Rodriguez led his strike group through the asteroid field at speeds that terrified his Federation escorts. Rocks that should have been navigational hazards became tactical advantages. Human ships used asteroid impacts to change direction unpredictably. They fired weapons while spinning end over end through debris fields. Captain, transmitted Commander Kale of the Altarian Scouts, your navigation is extremely dangerous. One collision could destroy your entire formation. Commander, Rodriguez replied while pulling his ship through a maneuver that violated 3 laws of physics. Collision with asteroids is temporary. Collision with void weapons is permanent. I'll take my chances with the rocks. Meanwhile, Captain Chen's Alpha Group demonstrated human pack tactics in pure form. When her ship, the Defiance, took heavy damage, instead of withdrawing to safety, the rest of her group immediately closed formation around her. They used their own vessels as shields while the Defiance conducted emergency repairs. Inefficient resource allocation, observed Dr. Axios. Multiple ships risking destruction to save one damaged vessel. Effective morale maintenance, countered Admiral Blake. My captains fight harder because they know their comrades will never abandon them. Fear of abandonment causes hesitation. Confidence in support enables aggression. The Void Collective's confusion. The Void Collective had adapted to Federation tactical patterns over years of successful campaigns. Their collective consciousness could predict Federation responses and counter them effectively. Human tactics presented an entirely new challenge. Void entities communicated through shared consciousness, making decisions based on optimal benefit to the collective whole. Human decisions often prioritized individual loyalty over collective optimization. This created responses the Void consciousness literally could not comprehend. When human Captain James Wright's ship was surrounded by Void fighters, standard tactical analysis indicated certain destruction. Wright's response, was to ram his vessel directly into the largest void ship while broadcasting human music at maximum volume through all communication channels. The psychological impact on Federation forces was immediate. Instead of seeing a ship destroyed, they saw a human choosing exactly how he would die while denying the enemy an easy victory. Wright's sacrifice inspired Federation crews to fight with determination they had never shown before. "The humans are teaching us something beyond tactics," observed High Marshal Vextar as he watched his own crystalline warriors begin adopting human aggressive stances. "They are teaching us that survival sometimes requires accepting unacceptable risks." The turning point. The battle reached its climax when Void forces attempted their signature tactic, mass consciousness drain. Energy tendrils reached out from Void ships to begin consuming the minds of everyone within range. Federation forces had never found an effective counter to this attack. Admiral Blake had a counter ready. "All ships, this is Blake. Implement Protocol 0. Human vessels immediately began broadcasting on every frequency simultaneously. The communications flood included everything from military chatter to human music, literature readings, mathematical equations, and random conversations. The sheer volume of human mental activity created interference in the Void consciousness network. "What is the purpose of this communications chaos?" asked Dr. Axios. "Noise," replied Captain Chen. "The Void collective processes thoughts in ordered patterns. Human consciousness is chaotic by their standards. Too much human thinking in one area gives them digital indigestion." The effect was immediate and dramatic. Void ships began moving erratically as their collective consciousness struggled to filter human mental static from useful information. Their coordinated formations broke apart as individual Void entities lost connection with the central collective. "Impossible," breathed Marshal Vextar. "You're disrupting their coordination through pure mental chaos." "We're disrupting their coordination through pure human thought," Blake corrected. "Turns out organized minds trying to consume chaotic ones get very confused very quickly." The great counteroffensive. With Void forces disrupted and confused, Admiral Blake ordered the first major offensive operation Federation forces had attempted in 2 years. The target was ambitious: simultaneous attacks on 12 Void collective strongholds across 3 sectors. "Admiral," protested Dr. Axios, "simultaneous operations across such distances will prevent mutual support between strike groups. If any force encounters heavy resistance, they'll be destroyed before help can arrive." "Doctor, mutual support is exactly what the Void collective expects," Blake replied. "They've learned to predict Federation mutual support patterns and use them to draw forces into traps. We're not going to provide mutual support." The human admiral manipulated the tactical display to show strike group assignments. Each group contained a mix of human and Federation vessels, but the human ships made up the core combat elements, while Federation vessels provided specialized support roles. "Each strike group operates independently," Blake explained. "If one group encounters heavy resistance, they adapt their objectives without waiting for support. If they can't complete their primary mission, they find alternative ways to damage the Void collective." Captain Rodriguez demonstrated human adaptive thinking during the planning session. "If my group can't destroy the Void manufacturing center in Sector 12, we'll hit their resource transports instead. If we can't hit their transports, we'll attack their communication relays. If we can't attack their relays, we'll rescue Federation prisoners and deny them consciousness absorption. Victory in chaos." The great counteroffensive launched. Simultaneously across 12 systems, Federation observers monitored.
The silent strike DR. Alina Vasquez pressed her face against the observation window of Mars Research Station Alpha and watched Earth disappear. Not physically, of course. The blue marble still hung in the darkness of space, still turned slowly. On its axis, still reflected the light of the sun, but in every way that mattered. Earth had vanished completely. Alina had been studying extremophile bacteria in the Martian soil when the first reports came in. Strange atmospheric changes over major cities, unusual electromagnetic readings. Then, within 6 hours, Every communication from Earth simply stopped. No radio signals, no internet traffic, no emergency broadcasts. Nothing but silence from a planet that had been buzzing with 8 billion voices. Just hours before dot, the xenobiologist ran her fingers through her black hair and tried to make sense of what she was seeing through the station's most powerful telescope. Earth looked normal from this distance, but the complete lack of any electromagnetic signature told a different story. It was as if someone had simply turned off an entire planet. Commander Jack Peterson floated up behind her in the low gravity. His weathered face showed the strain of the last 48 hours. As station commander, he had been trying frantically to establish contact with Earth, with any Earth-based facility, with anyone who might explain what had happened to their home world. Still nothing on any frequency, Peterson said quietly. I've tried everything. Emergency channels, military frequencies, even ham radio operators. It's like the whole planet just went dark. Alina turned away from the window. The research station felt different now, smaller somehow. What had been their temporary home away from Earth now might be all they had left. 23 researchers and support staff on a tiny outpost, possibly the only humans left alive in the universe. Have you heard anything from Lunar Base or the asteroid mining stations? Alina asked. Peterson shook his head. Lunar Base went silent at the same time as Earth. Too close, I guess. But we're getting scattered signals from some of the outer system. Facilities. Titan Base is still active, and so are a few of the research stations near Jupiter. Maybe a couple thousand survivors total, spread across the solar system. Alina felt a chill that had nothing to do with the station's recycled air. A couple thousand humans, scattered across space, possibly all that remained of their species. She had dedicated her life to studying life in extreme environments, but she had never imagined she might become an example of it herself. 3 days later, they got their first clue about what had happened. The answer came from the aliens themselves. The transmission appeared on every functional human receiver simultaneously. The signal was impossibly strong, clearly artificial, and definitely not from anywhere in the solar system. When Alina and the rest of the station crew gathered in the communications center to listen, they heard a voice that would haunt their nightmares for years to come. The voice was speaking English, but there was something wrong with it. Too precise, too calculated, as if the speaker had learned human language from a textbook rather than from actually talking to humans. The words came through the speakers with crystal clarity. Greetings to the remaining human specimens. We are the Kithra Empire, guardians of galactic order and cleanliness. Your species has been classified as a biological contamination and has been subject to standard sterilization procedures. This process was completed 72 hours ago. Alina felt her blood turn to ice. The clinical, emotionless tone made it even worse, somehow. These aliens spoke about genocide the way a scientist might describe cleaning a laboratory. The voice continued. Do not attempt to interfere with our cleanup operations. The remaining human specimens in off-world locations will be collected and processed within the next standard cycle. Resistance is unnecessary and will only prolong the discomfort. The Kithora Empire thanks you for your compliance. The transmission ended, leaving the communication center in stunned silence. Peterson was the first to speak. Sterilization procedures, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. They killed everyone on Earth, and they're calling it sterilization. Elena's scientific mind was already working, analyzing what they had heard. They called us specimens. Not people, not beings, specimens. They don't see us as intelligent life. To them, we're just bacteria that needs to be cleaned up. Dr. Sarah Kim, the station's physicist, pulled up a star chart on the main screen. If they've got ships coming to collect us, we need to know from where and when. That transmission came from outside the solar system, but the signal strength suggests they've got assets much closer. Alina stared at the star chart, her mind racing. She had spent years studying how life adapted to survive in impossible conditions. Extremophile organisms that thrived in boiling water, in pure acid, in the vacuum of space. Life that refused to die no matter what the universe threw at it. Maybe it was time to find out if humans were as tough as the bacteria she studied. Commander Alina said, turning to Peterson, "We need to contact every human facility that's still active. Right now, we're scattered and isolated, exactly what they want. But if we work together, if we coordinate our efforts, maybe we can be something more than just specimens waiting to be collected." Peterson nodded grimly. "What did you have in mind, Doc?" Alina looked back out the observation window at the silent Earth. Somewhere down there, 8 billion people were either dead or dying. The Cathora thought they had wiped out humanity with one efficient strike. They thought the few survivors scattered across space would be easy to mop up. They were about to learn their first lesson about human nature. When you try to exterminate the human race, you don't get compliance, you get war. We're going to survive. Alina said simply, and then we're going to make them pay for what they did to our world. Over the next week, Alina worked with communications specialist Tommy Rodriguez to establish secure contact with every human outpost they could find. The picture that emerged was both encouraging and terrifying. The Cathora had been thorough, but not perfect. Earth and Luna were completely silent, but scattered facilities throughout the outer solar system were still active. Titan Base had 200 personnel. Europa Station had 50. The asteroid mining operations had another 100 spread across a dozen small facilities. Various research stations, military outposts, and commercial operations added up to just over 3,000 survivors total. 3,000 humans, facing an alien empire that had casually committed genocide against 8 billion of their species. During one of her late-night communication sessions with the other facilities, Alina made a discovery that changed everything. Dr. Amanda Foster from Europa Station was a biochemist who specialized in suspended animation research. She had been analyzing the few data transmissions that had gotten out of Earth before the communications blackout. "Alina, I don't think they're all dead," Foster said over the encrypted channel. Alina nearly dropped her coffee. "What do you mean?" "Look at these atmospheric readings from the hours before Earth went silent. Massive release of airborne compounds, but not the kind you'd use to kill people quickly. These look like the compounds we use in our hibernation research. Complex biological agents designed to shut down higher brain functions and slow metabolic processes." Alina studied the data Foster was transmitting. Her xenobiology background helped her understand what she was looking at. "You think they put the entire planet to sleep?" "That's exactly what I think. And if I'm right, that means everyone down there is still alive. They're just in some kind of induced coma, waiting for someone to wake them up." Alina stared at the data, her heart pounding. 8 billion people, not dead but sleeping, waiting for rescue that might never come unless the scattered survivors could somehow pull off the impossible. She opened a channel to all the other human facilities. "This is Dr. Alina Vasquez on Mars Research Station Alpha. I need every biologist, chemist, and medical officer to listen very carefully. We may have just found out that our people are still alive. Ghosts in the machine. Marcus Chen had always been good at fixing things that were broken. As a military engineer before the attack, he had specialized in taking damaged equipment and making it work better than it had when it was new. Now, standing in the cramped workshop of Titan Base, he was trying to fix something much more complex than any machine he had ever worked on. He was trying to fix the future of the human race. The workshop was cluttered with pieces of alien technology that Marcus and his team had been salvaging from wrecked spacecraft scattered throughout the outer solar system. For decades, humans had been finding traces of ancient conflicts between alien species, broken ships, damaged weapons, fragments of technology from civilizations that had fought and died long before humans had even invented fire. Most of it had been studied and catalogued by human scientists, then stored away in research facilities. But now, with Earth silent and the Kythera promising to come for the survivors, that junk had become the most valuable resource in the solar system. Marcus picked up a device that looked like a metallic spider with too many legs. According to the research notes, it was some kind of sensor array from a species called the Vorthon. The Vorthon had been wiped out by an unknown enemy 3,000 years ago, but their technology still functioned perfectly. Any luck with the cloaking matrix? Asked Jennifer Walsh, Titan Base's head of security. She had been a Marine before the attack, and now she was the closest thing they had to a military commander. Marcus held up the spider-like device. I think so. This Vorthon sensor uses quantum displacement to hide objects from electromagnetic detection. If I can integrate it with our ship systems, we might be able to move around without the Kythera knowing where we are. Jennifer nodded. How long? Give me another week, maybe 2. The hard part isn't making it work, it's making it work with human technology. These aliens built their stuff using completely different principles than we do. Marcus had been working 18-hour days since Elena Vasquez had shared her discovery about Earth's population still being alive. If the people down there were in some kind of suspended animation, then time was critical. Extended hibernation was dangerous under the best circumstances, and Marcus doubted the Kythera cared much about keeping their specimens healthy. Through Titan Base's small windows, Marcus could see the dim glow of Saturn's rings in the distance. Titan had always felt isolated, but now it felt like the edge of the universe. He and the 193 other people on the base were completely cut off from Earth, surrounded by hostile aliens who wanted to finish what they had started. But Marcus had learned something important during his years as an engineer. The bigger and more complex a system was, the more ways there were to break it. The Kythera thought they had humanity cornered, but they had made several mistakes. They had left survivors scattered throughout the solar system. They had underestimated human resourcefulness. And most importantly, they had given humans time to adapt. The communication system crackled to life. Elena's voice came through clearly despite the vast distance between Mars and Titan. Marcus, we're getting some interesting readings from the automated probes we sent toward Earth. It looks like the Kythera left behind a monitoring network. Marcus activated his workstation's display screen. Elena was transmitting data from several small probes that the survivors had launched toward Earth over the past 2 weeks. The probes were designed to look like natural space debris, just chunks of rock and metal drifting through the inner solar system. What kind of monitoring network? Marcus asked. Automated platforms in Earth orbit, Elena replied. Looks like maybe 30 or 40 of them. all designed to watch for any kind of unusual activity on or around the planet. If anyone tries to land on Earth or starts broadcasting from the surface, these platforms will detect it immediately. Marcus studied the probe data. The monitoring platforms were small but sophisticated, equipped with sensors that could detect everything from engine signatures to biological activity. Any attempt to reach Earth would trigger an immediate alert to wherever the main Cathora fleet was waiting. There's more, Alina continued. The platforms aren't just watching Earth. They're actively maintaining the hibernation field that's keeping everyone unconscious. If we could disable the platforms, we might be able to start waking people up. Marcus felt his pulse quicken. This was exactly the kind of problem he had trained for his entire career. A complex system with multiple failure points, defended by automated systems, requiring precision and stealth to overcome. How heavily defended are these platforms? He asked. That's the interesting part, Alina said. They don't appear to be armed at all. The Cathora probably figured that dead planets don't need much protection. They're relying on stealth and distance to keep them safe. Jennifer moved closer to Marcus's workstation. You're thinking about going after them, aren't you? Marcus nodded. With the right ship and the right equipment, we might be able to take out several platforms before the Cathora even know what's happening. Alina, how many platforms would we need to destroy to start disrupting the hibernation field? There was a pause while Alina consulted with her team. According to our calculations, if we could take out about 15 of them in key positions, we might be able to create gaps in the field coverage. Not enough to wake everyone up at once, but enough to start bringing small groups back to consciousness. Marcus was already running calculations in his head. 15 targets spread around Earth orbit, defended by sensors that could detect conventional human spacecraft from millions of kilometers away. It would require stealth technology, precise timing, and a lot of luck. I can do it, Marcus said. Give me 3 more weeks to finish integrating this Vorthan cloaking system with one of our fast scout ships. We'll ghost right up to those platforms and take them out one by one. Over the following weeks, Marcus barely slept. He worked constantly on the stealth system, combining Vorthan quantum displacement technology with human engineering principles. The result was unlike anything that had ever been built before, a hybrid system that used alien science to hide human spacecraft from detection. The test flights were nerve-wracking. Marcus piloted the modified scout ship through Saturn's rings, past automated sensors that should have detected him immediately. The ship's quantum displacement field bent electromagnetic radiation around the hull, making it effectively invisible to most forms of detection. But the real test would come when they tried to approach Earth. Marcus launched his mission on a Tuesday morning, local Titan time. The modified scout ship was small and fast, equipped with the best stealth technology the survivors had been able to build. Along with the Vorthan cloaking system, Marcus had installed salvaged weapons from 6 different alien species. He was flying a ship that represented the combined technological knowledge of multiple galactic civilizations, all jury-rigged together by human ingenuity. The flight to Earth took 4 days. Marcus spent most of that time running silent, trusting in the stealth system to keep him hidden from whatever sensors the Cathora might have scattered throughout the solar system. He flew past Mars Research Station Alpha, past the asteroid belt where human mining operations had once thrived, past the silent ruins of Lunar Base. And then he was there, hanging in space just outside Earth's atmosphere, looking down at his sleeping world. Earth looked peaceful from orbit, but Marcus knew better. 8 billion people lay unconscious down there, trapped in whatever nightmare the Cathora had inflicted on them. The monitoring platforms were exactly where Alina had predicted, spread around the planet in a careful pattern, designed to maintain complete surveillance. Marcus targeted the first platform and fired. The salvaged weapon system worked perfectly, sending a focused energy beam that disintegrated the alien monitoring station in seconds. There was no explosion, no debris, just a brief flash of light and then empty space where the platform had been. 1 down, 14 to go. Marcus spent the next 6 hours playing a deadly game of cat and mouse with the automated systems. Each time he destroyed a platform, the remaining ones became slightly more alert, their sensors sweeping space more carefully. But the quantum displacement field held, keeping his ship invisible even as he moved from target to target. When the 15th platform disappeared in a flash of energy, Marcus felt something change. The very air around Earth seemed different somehow, less oppressive. Deep in the planet's major cities, people who had been unconscious for weeks began to stir. Not many, not yet, but enough to prove that the plan was working. Marcus opened a communication channel to Alina. "Package delivered," he said simply. "Time to wake up, our people." Down on Earth, in hidden bunkers and underground shelters that had survived the initial attack, small groups of humans began to wake up from their enforced sleep. They woke up confused, frightened, and angry, but they woke up ready to fight. The Cathora had made their biggest mistake yet. They had given humanity time to prepare, time to adapt, and time to get very, very angry. The war was about to begin in earnest. Asterisk.